Hello everyone, this is Salah and you are watching tutorials on JavaScript. From the second part, you will start learning basics of JavaScript. So in this part, I will give you an introduction of variables and then I will show you how to create variables in JavaScript. Variables creation in JavaScript is somehow different as compared to other programming languages. And we'll look into that in a couple of minutes. So let's first try to understand variables. So a variable is a storage place where we place data. And no matter which programming language you use, variables are exactly the same. You create them, you give them a name, and assign data to them. However, the way we create them may differ from one language to another. So the JavaScript has two main ways of creating variables. The first one is using the keyword let, and the second one is using the keyword constant. So let's first create the variables using let and constant, and then we will discuss the difference between them. Right, so I created two different variables, A side and B side. They are now storage boxes in the program and both of them hold 0. Now the significant difference between let and constant is when you use let, your variable is mutable. A mutable variable can be reassigned and modified in the program. But when you use constant and create a variable, your variable is immutable. Immutable means you cannot assign any other value to it after its creation. Let's say I try to reassign another value after its creation. So this modification and reassignment is not allowed. And you will see an error if you try to print it out. Let's try to log the variable in the console. Now in the console you see an error which says assignment to constant variable. Right, so the value assigned to any constant variable can't be changed. Okay, so don't forget it. However, there are some exceptions that we will discuss later, but not now. Right, so another important thing that you need to remember is you must assign a value to your constant at the time of its creation. You're not allowed to create it first and then give it a value later on. Let me show you an example. I will create another constant without initializing it. And now I'm trying to initialize it with a value. Right, so what I did here, I tried to create a constant without initializing it, and then I initialize it after its creation, right? So as per language rule, you're not allowed to do that, right? And if you run this program, so this line of code will give you an error. So create a constant and assign it a value at the time of its creation is the right way to code in JavaScript. Let's now talk about the let variable. So the variables you create using keyword let, as I said earlier, are mutable. And that means you can reassign, manipulate, and modify anytime in the program. Let's try to reassign and modify let variable. And if I log the value in the console, then you will see it holds the value of 20, although the initial value was 0 when we created this variable, right? And now here you see the value is modified. Okay, so initially at the time of creation we assigned 0 to a variable and then we reassign our variable with a value of 10, and here you see another reassignment. And after this statement, our assigned variable holds a value of 20, right? And using let, you are not even bound to initialize your variable at the time of creation. That means you can create a variable without assigning any value, and you can assign any value afterwards, right? And using let, you can even create multiple variables at a time. I hope I made it clear and you know the difference between mutable and immutable variables in JavaScript. And the creation of variables is also not so difficult. We use keywords let and constant for that. JavaScript has also been using keyword var in creation of variables. But in modern JavaScript standard, ES6, we avoid the use of var because it has several quirks such as lexical scope. So we will continue to work with modern JavaScript standard and we use let and constant in creation of variables. Right, so this is the end of the second part. And in the third part, we will discuss how to rightly name variables in JavaScript. So I will see you in the third part. Stay tuned and thanks for watching.